Assalamu alaikum, shalom, ni hao, buenos dias, buenas tardes, etc. Aquaba, welcome in. What up, though? This is Cafe Melange. Week what? Is it week nueve? Week nueve? Session uno. How is this continuing? Anyways, we continue on. So I got a topic for today. Oh, it's a juicy one. It's heavy. It's political. It's controversial. But what's new? Yo, it's windy again today. I'm trying to be mindful of that without blocking it. So, let's see what we do. I'll check out what the mic is. It's actually tough to see where the mic is actually. They're like joints that look like speakers, but anyway, we're gonna roll as is. So, the basic conversation, the basic topic or issue or idea is nationalism. Specifically, rainbow nationalism. No homo. Rainbow nationalism. And then a follow-up topic for this joint is recent YouTube views. So that is the notion for this session. Right? So what is meant by rainbow nationalism? It's basically advocacy, support, encouragement for the political autonomy and self-determination of respective ethnic communities in the U.S. specifically, but also in other, particularly colonized lands, but also it's a coyote is what I'm showing you. In colonized lands particularly, but specifically in the United States. So that's basically what it is. Rainbow referring to the different colors. Black, white, black nationalism, white nationalism, yellow nationalism, orange nationalism, yellow nationalism, red nationalism. If I didn't say it already. So all that. A political solidarity and platform that supports that political determination, whether that means just local. To be honest, that kind of looks increasingly formidable, increasingly strong, and not straggly like previous ones look like. Maybe it's gotten some food. So strong local political autonomy at the neighborhood, village level. It can mean the secession of provinces and straight up national sovereignty. It can even mean sovereign villages. So whatever the community deems appropriate for its conditions and characteristics. So that's what is meant. Now this comes on the heels of watching a couple of videos featuring. Well, actually, I think it's actually a video with Umar Johnson, brother Dr. Umar Johnson. So I also watched a video on the Grapevine. Both of these on YouTube. The one with brother Dr. Umar was on the Breakfast Club joint, the radio program. Not the 80s classic. Big up to both. But anyways, so that there's that kind of thing going on, and rather than just posting something, I think the interview was a few months ago, and rather than posting just something as a comment amidst the already thousands of comments that are already there, um, or writing a letter or doing a call, this and the other, I'm just sharing these thoughts here. Um, and it's also, again, Brother Dr. Umar Johnson is uh, a very forthright, some could say even intellectually militant um, psychologist based out of the city of brotherly love. And he advocates a black nationalism, but also Pan Africanism as well. Right? So he was giving his spiel on the talk show on the video. Now I'm familiar with Brother Dr. Umar Johnson for a number of years, and his spiel. I agree with a lot of what he says. I disagree with a lot of what he says, and he's one of the few that gets a certain amount of PT, meaning like attention, particularly amongst the black community, but also in conventional society. Uh, Conventional meaning being on Breakfast Club, and additionally, because that's convention, that's mainstream. It may be a segregated portion of mainstream, but it's still mainstream. Compared to other black militants and additionally. So, anyways, um, he gets additional amount of attention, and he has intelligence. He's got degrees. He has a profession, and so he's able to articulate the black nationalist politics. And to be honest, I'm not certain how tough he is on black nationalism. I'm increasingly aware of his Pan Africanism, but his delivery, his talking points are along the lines of black nationalism. Very very forthright in proclaiming the U.S. as racist, and additionally, so hey Leo. But to be honest, in terms of nationalism, I'm uncertain how much he is actually that. Because one reason I say this is because what I am aware is that he teaches, or he's actually organizing this a few years ago, organizing a school and looking for a campus and getting it set up and everything. So if one's a black nationalist, school up, of course, yes. Having a boarding school, okay, sure, right. But if that's like the long term plan, I mean, it takes a lot to build a kind of school, and then it takes a lot of like cooperation with the mainstream. So how is the one going to be like militant and black nationalist, but then also like work for raise money and get the land deeds and titles and pay salaries and do taxes and what? So again, there's like that. So how much of it is black nationalist and how much of it is kind of like political autonomy? And there's a big difference between those. It's not necessarily mutually exclusive. It ain't mutually exclusive. However, there are some conflicts of interest in those two paths, um, and so there's that. Um, Additionally, he articulates again a number of years ago some of his intended policies or his standing policies for his school. Seemingly he was getting some things together, shopping around for land, and getting a crew together, and preparing the recruitment of teachers and additionally. So I'm not sure how much of it was like forward thinking and how much of it was actually answering needs at that moment, but he started sharing policies of what's needed to establish like an appropriate, healthy mental learning environment on campus. And so part of that included, guess what? No melange. No dating somebody outside of the black race. And now, to be honest, I'm not certain. I think it was anyone outside of other than black. It was either that or somebody who was white. And I think it was just pretty much anybody who was any person non-African ancestry. No marriage, no dating of somebody who's not black. So, aha. All right, well, that exceeds a lot. So, anyways, again, there are things I agree with and there are things I disagree with. So there's understandability for that in terms of like the integrity of a Afrocentric um, environment, learning, social, working, and addition. So there's understanding for that. Um, but again, it's very problematic on a number of levels. One, as a policy level in and of itself, as a social kind of draconian kind of imposition, but also is a contradictory of policy because wait a minute. First of all, what language are you talking? That's not African. If you want to be technical about that. So if you're going to talk about some pure Afrocentric kind of environment, guess what? You got to be talking another language. And also, those creating leads that you're holding for the land, and that money that you're holding for the land, where's that coming from? So again, it's like a partial kind of approach. It's like partial, I mean like only a part, meaning a segment, fraction, uh, half done approach towards that type of cultural, ethnic uh, purity, and if you want supremacy or however you want to describe it. So all due respect, but still, just like there it is. So anyways, all that being said, now on this thing with the on the Breakfast Club radio show, um, they were basically just talking about communities, this, that, and the other. Now it was interesting. To be honest, I didn't watch the whole thing, and this is the reason why. The first question one of the brothers asked, brother Doctor Umar, is uh, yada yada yada. What's the solution? You know what the problem is. What's the solution? And brother Doctor Umar was kind of like, well, hold on, not so fast. Before we get into the solution, we have to truly understand the problem. Because a lot of people say they know what the problem is, but they don't know how the problem works, how it operates. So he starts to break it down again and gets into this feel about what the problem is. So again, he's intelligent. He's got language. He's got words. He's got learning and degrees. He's got militant. By militant, I mean the intellectual fortitude of having an Afrocentric mindset, even after obtaining that conventional mainstream Eurocentric education. So he skipped it. There it is. But the thing, he's back into the problem again. And and two things. One, it's a problem. He didn't answer the question. It's not the solution. And again, that was like 20 minutes into it. So at that point, I was just like, all right, that's enough. Um, that video was over like 50 minutes to an hour or so. But after that point, I was like, you didn't get the solution yet, and that's what I'm listening to. So, answer the question. Then, uh, what was interesting is observing his response in describing what the problem is. Because in describing what the challenge is, in describing what the challenge is, um, he basically reverts to his training, which is Eurocentric, Western Eurocentric training, DOCTA, and particularly medicine. He has a psychology degree, from what I understand, so I think it's a PhD rather than an MD, but doctor meaning. But still, even as a psychologist, it's very much predicated upon that approach of diagnosis. What's the problem, and then thoroughly understanding the problem, and then identifying how to eradicate the problem. So that process of Western medicine is not in and of itself a notion of understanding health and what's well-being. It's a matter of negating the disease. And so it's a double negative. And that was what much of his rhetoric was. This is racist, this is racist, this is racist, this is racist. So, yes, we know that. No shit, but guess what? That's life. And I'm not the Uncle Tom saying, oh, just pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But I'm saying, yo, it's nasty in these streets. Whether them streets be Philly, South Side, North Side, East Side, West Side, Chicago, Chi-Town, what's it called? Chirac, whether it's Compton, whether it's Boogie Down, or Crooklyn, or Soweto, or Sao Paulo. Yo, streets is nasty. Cats is playing for keep. Shanghai, and additionally, now people talk about there being less worries about security in other places, but my point is this: like, it's black folk, people of African ancestry on this land, on the plantation, need to get out of this mentality of things being deserved, and the notion of things being fair. Yo, people ain't fair, and we gotta not expect that. And the important thing is to be increasingly independent from those things that are afflictory, right, and oppressive. So it's a matter of like no shit. Uh, the oppressor is unfair and classist and racist. And additionally, what do you expect? You expect the Catholic just to wake up and say, "Oh, my bad"? Nah, it ain't. Nah, don't plan on that happening. So the thing is, okay, if you want to understand how the game works, understand what it is. First of all, just get off the idea of depending on massa, because that's where things are at the moment. It's depending on upon massa and then blaming massa for being unfair. Yo, get off it. Get off massa. Get off eating from massa's hand. And yeah, that means some lashes sometimes. That means some kunta kinte foot treatment. And additionally, but what's new and what's not already happened? So I'm getting into that spiel again. So I have something else to share on this joint, and this is a little bit militant for a melange, but this is the nature of things. And again, this is on all nationalist fronts, and so it's getting off that expectation of supposed things are going to be fair, and oh, we've got these rights and this and the other, and you're not honoring our rights. Yo, the world. Yes, there are people who are compassionate. Yes, there are standards. Yes, there are norms and protocols within there, but we got to get off this notion of being spoiled children, and the liberal kind of ideology and mentality and methodology of just complaining to parents who are presumed to care, because it may work sometimes for the spoiled children, but when it's the slaves in the slave quarters doing it, masters don't care too much about that. So we can't rely upon that methodology, and that goes to what Brother Dr. Kumar, excuse me, no disrespect, Brother Dr. Umar was talking about in terms of protest and this and the other. Yo, come on, brother. The brother asked a question about like how much does that work actually work, and this and the other. Exactly. And how else can we be investing our attention, our effort, our energy, our materials, and additionally, our organizing, our political capital, and additionally. So, and then a lot of the talk was talking about the inefficacy of Obama. Okay, what did you expect? It's a puppet. POTUS is a puppet. And then talking about, again, the America being racist. What do you expect? Stop using the U.S. dollar. Stop using U.S. banks. Stop paying taxes. Stop paying rent. Squat in a place where you live, and claim it as your own. If you want to make a move and be this and the other, be militant, you'd be like, oh, now they got something to come. Well, what are you talking about then? Because if you're just talking about a bigger portion of the pie, and being an increasingly comfortable slave, nah. So that's what we're talking about. Claiming stewardship, claiming sovereignty where one is. And you say, oh, but they're gonna. What are they not doing already? It's a matter of being organized and knowing how to do it, and building accordingly. So, and it doesn't have to be a big step all at the moment. I mean, it can be just a matter of having a co-op. Like if you know cats that you are rolling with, whether that's Latino, whether that's white nationalists, whether that's black nationalists, whether that's Asian, whether that's Desi, whether that's the Uma or whatever crew you're rolling with, and like you got this, like, yo, we need to be doing this ourselves. Get a co-op. Whatever, if you got a house and you're paying debt on a house, yo, sell the house and put that towards a building. Give up this notion of having a living room, dining room, 3-car garage and this thing. Let go of that. What's important is it political self-determination and teaching teaching your ancestry and heritage to your children, or is it being comfortable and rolling and being influential, and hobnobbing with the bourgeoisie set, the buppy, yuppie, yappy, dappy, sappy set. What's important? Um, so let go of the luxuries and the trappings, the mana, the unnecessary mana. So, anyways, just do a residential co-op. And then with having residential co-op, you're living with each other. You're building community exactly in that space. And then you know what it's like to to run a facility. What it's like to need electricity to do the water, to do if it got gas, to do the gas, to do the email, the email, the internet, Wi-Fi, and additionally what it takes to maintenance, plumbing, and additionally. Um, Landscaping and everything, getting a garden together, get experience and start learning what it's like to be a community. Remember what it's like to be a king and a prophet instead of just a rich slave with a lot of swagger. So remember that. Remember what it's like to be a king and a prophet. What it's like to be responsible for things, not complaining and expecting somebody else to run it, and then just cursing people because it's not the way you like it. Remember what it's like to be in charge, to be responsible, and to run the show. So it takes a lot to do that, and one gives up a lot to do that. So that's what's involved. It ain't easy, and you lose sleep. And anyways, all right. So that's that. Now those are some things towards the solution. But even before you get to the solution, or before you get to that stage of the residential co-op, this is like the solution for all the elements of the rainbow nationalist front. Confucius talks about the way of the gentleman, and that's something that's necessary in that's like a foundational premise, necessity, prerequisite for community upliftment, to have a code that to hold people accountable, the leadership accountable, and additionally, beyond just being black and dying. It's beyond that. It's a matter of having a code, a discipline, a set of principles that are explicit, that you hold people accountable to. Like, yo, he violated that, and impose those consequences accordingly. That don't mean death. That don't mean breaking legs or whatever. That just means, yo, time out. This, that, and the other. Things that are at people's disposal, and that's not a cryptic reference either. So having a code, having a set of principles, and being very forthright in that. So I share the principles of honesty, sobriety, veganism, marital fidelity, and ethical economics. And each of those is applicable to every nationalist front. Honesty, that's just plain and simple. Sobriety, come on, one of the most common ways, one of the most significant ways that nations and civilizations undermine each other is by unloading intoxicants within the society of the other, whether it's opium, whether it's heroin, whether it's alcohol, whether it's pot liquor, whether it's weed, whether it's cocaine, or otherwise. You weaken the other society through the dumping of intoxicants, and so that's ancient. That's for millennia, but particularly in recent centuries, around the world, Aye, aye, aye. So, anyways, I don't mean to be funny, but anyways, so sobriety, keep sober. Stop hiding in them trees and hide them in them bottles to deal with like the beast. Like sober up and deal with this mother. All right. So that's sobriety. The third one, veganism. That's a lot for some people, like mentally and socially, culturally, and additionally. But at the very least, be mindful of what you're eating, where it comes from, what it's doing to you. Diabetes, heart disease, blood pressure, high blood pressure, all these things. Obesity, all that. And I don't mean to be preachy. I'm just, these are facts. So, and again, I was having a conversation with brother yesterday. Yo, it's a package deal, mind, body, and soul. mind, body, and spirit. Each element affects all the other elements. So if you're talking about taking on the man, taking on the oppressor, taking on the system, yo, you need some discipline, you need some strength, you need some the ground beneath your feet, partner, the wind behind your back, and part of that is how we eat, how we strengthen ourselves, how we build that muscle, and how we flex that muscle, how we feed that muscle. Um, and so that's part of it. And veganism is just healthy categorically. It's honest, it's healthy, it's clean. There it is. So that's part of it. Um, Run with the horses, roll with the elephants, the buffalo, and additionally. So that's the third one. Fourth one, marital fidelity. Oh, yo, come on, relationships, respecting our women, being modest, abstaining from getting caught up in all the gossip and all the he say, she say, and who's doing what to who and this, that, and the other. I mentioned before about intoxicants undermining nations. Yo, women, and that's not putting on women, that's putting it on men. Falling for the women, getting caught up, jealousy, Cleopatra, and additionally, so Helen of Troy and all that. So, having due respect for our women, being modest, um, maintaining our integrity. Because when dudes run up in the women and ain't getting caught up this and the other, cats still know, and it diminishes the righteous factor of the activism and everything else like that. So, marital relationship, sex only in marriage, and that marriage being sanctioned by the entire community. And the entire community basically meaning like by the protocols of the community and sanctioned through leadership within the community additionally. So, marital fidelity. That is such a primary thing. The Bhagavad Gita talks about it as well. Being honest with our women and encouraging our women to be virtuous, because that's the strength of the family. That's the strength of the village, and additionally, that's where our children are raised, and how our children learn, and where the faith of our children, the trust of our children, is seated and founded. So that's foundational. That's fundamental. Marital fidelity. And then the sixth one, ethical economics. It's a trip how much cats don't care, particularly militants, black nationalists, don't care about what's going on in the earth, don't care about native brethren here on this land, and are quick to say, oh, but we the originals and this and the other, this is our land. Come on, y'all. I mean, you can go into the ancient thing or whatever else, but if you want cats to recognize, if you want the world to recognize and support the cause of black folk on this land, and the wrongs, the atrocities of the Middle Passage and the oppression for hundreds of years to today, through today, if you want cats to seriously consider that and like abide by that and like work to undo that, to relieve that, to alleviate that, we need to have that same type of recognition and righteousness for the atrocities and afflictions that are going on against people off this plantation and within the plantation. That goes for native people, that goes for migrant workers, that goes for immigrants, and additionally, so that goes for fair trade. The sweatshops and slave conditions, migrant worker conditions in the field and in the factories in other countries. And you'd be like, oh man, we ain't got to care about all that, this and the other. Who cares what's going on in Bangladesh or Qatar, or Qatar's probably not the best example, Yemen, or the United Arab Emirates, or Israel, or Brazil, or whatever. Who cares about all that, man? What they do for us, man, what they done for us lately, this, that, and the other. Okay, then what you expect the United Nations or anyone else to do for us? Even South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, and additionally, you want being emancipated. First of all, liberation is something we do ourselves. It's not something that's done for us. So being liberated means being a player on the world stage. Being a player on the world stage means being responsible for what's happening on the world stage. So I don't know what that is. Is that it's paper, lint. Being a player on the world stage, being responsible, and then being answerable, just in the way we expect others to be answerable for what happens to us here. Um, so that includes being paying people a fair wage. Yes, that means being further expensive, but yo, cats spend hundreds of dollars to get kicks and gear and everything else like that, just because it's the brand name and certain athlete is promoting it or whatever else, not caring about who's putting together what kind of pain they're suffering. Shalom, but not caring what kind of pain they're experiencing initially, and then expecting somebody to care about the pain here. That's hypocrisy. That's not even contradiction. That's hypocrisy. So uh, there's little expectation of things changing until cats here are increasingly righteous and thoroughly and genuinely righteous. So that's part of it. So those five are a code that I advocate, that I practice to the best of my ability. Honesty, sobriety, veganism, marital fidelity, and ethical economics. So, um, that's what I offer as a solution. And that the code doesn't have to be that specific code. Whatever code cats feel is relevant for what their crew is, whatever cats think their community is, whatever that code is. Find it, live it, build it, and the further solutions become increasingly evident from that. Co-ops, and additionally, so I mentioned before, Confucius talks about the way of the gentleman. And people say that the word gentleman is a little bit of a charged word for cats in the English speaker who speak of who come from an experience or speak from an experience of oppression. But the gentleman means just like a righteous person. You can say righteous man, the code of a righteous man. There's a code, like a thorough, comprehensive code, 24/7 code. That's a necessary part of society and community. Now, Confucius also talks about two other elements: ancestors, um, and ritual. So, those are two additional elements for solution. Building ritual, and we say we've got Kwanzaa, this, and the other for Black nationalists, and every culture, every ethnic group has its certain set of um, uh, rituals, but it's through rituals that there is further recognition of authority that exists beyond the temporal authority, and beyond any individualistic authority at this moment. Hi, how you doing? Um, so, and that's very important because rather than it becoming an ego contest of somebody trying to like impose their perception of what the code is upon somebody else, it's a matter of one having ritual. So there's a rhythm to the year, there's a rhythm to the months, and additionally, and their ebbs and flows, and it's a shared experience. So that's important. And there's momentum, there's downtimes, there's uptimes, and additionally that the community is experiencing together, and there's a bond that's shared. And further, again, it's a matter of being held accountable. The rituals are a way of connecting with our ancestry, with the eternal, and so that is a way. Hi. That is a way of um, strengthening our relationships with each other uh, at this day, but also strengthening our relationships with the eternal, because these are the rituals, the mindfulness, and the practices that our forebears are doing, that our parents, our grandparents, and that our ancestors do. And so when we do that, we become increasingly strengthened in dealing with the temporal conditions today. So That's one of the significant factors of that's just one of the significant factors of rituals. And again, also further, the rituals instill the principles. The rituals instill the stories. And so when it comes to regulating behavior in today that people are doing today, again, rather than just saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing this because this and the other," it's a matter of going to the stories. And when we're sharing the stories, it often becomes unnecessary to call cats out individually and directly because there's already an environment of expectation, and a violation of that expectation and that norm is increasingly evident, and it's easier to address and remedy and heal rather than having tribunals and courts and judgments and all this other type of contestation. So those are some of the essentials, and that's all things that we control, uh, quote unquote control. That's all within our own respective doing. So, and again, that's within any ethnic front, any nationalistic front, black nationalist, white nationalist, yellow, Latino, Asian, Desi, Arab, Israeli, native, whatever. All those components are applicable to each one, and it's applicable to the nations that already exist, that ain't doing it necessarily too tough, or maybe can be doing it even further tougher. So that's a solution. And when I look at, I was again watching that joint on the Grapevine. Um, you've got a black intelligentsia, and cats have knowledge, and cats have education, and cats have network, cats have resources. Um, and it's frustrating to listen to cats talk about what people don't have or what people should have. Um, and simultaneously, I'm seeing how cats are spending what cats already have, getting the design of this, the flashy this. Yo, what you doing with that? If you're talking about crisis and this and the other, yo, that's not the way to do it. So it's like wear plain Jane clothes, whatever. And again, no homo, whatever. That's not androgyny, whatever. But and I gotta say that because that's what things are these days. But it's like stop worrying about being flashy, designer, this, that, and the other, and just wear clothes to cover your body, and uh, focus on the priority things. So again, co-ops, residential co-op, transportation co-op. Stop trying to get the flashy whip and keeping up with the Joneses. Yo, get a commuter bus and put it on route. And if things are in crisis, yo, step up. So, anyways, again, I mean, treat preachy, but it gets frustrating to see that we can't afford to be the spoiled brats. So, and the spoiled brat methodology, because cats don't care about that as much. Another solution, this is going to be too much, but own our shit. Literally own our shit, and by shit I mean shit, but also shit literally, because shit is rich. But also own up to our shit, and recognize what we're not doing 100, what we're not doing all the way right, and how we can improve our game, and additionally, so I've gone on long enough, over half an hour on this drug at this point. So I'm a denouement on that montage of soapboxing, and I'll go. Anything else on that? There are a few other things, but maybe it'll be telephone. So what does it got to do with Melange? So I advocate Melange nationalism as well. How about that? And Mélanger sovereignty. That's part of the rainbow nationalism, and definitely a lot of Mélanger cats ain't on that tip. But there is certain benefit, like I said, for increased political determination. And for Mélanger, how about any political determination at this point, or any kind of political organization? So that is something that is beneficial, relevant, and even priority, and within our doing. So I'll go into the second part, the follow-up joint. Well, I'm going to say, before I do that, I'm going to say big up to the Grapevine. Love, peace, and respect. I appreciate, again, it's nice to see people of African ancestry talk intelligently about issues. I think one of the things I was frustrated with, other than, actually I agree with a lot of what was said, because there was a lot of sentiment that was agreeable. I think one of the challenges I experienced was with the topics were very reactionary, and it's basically reacting from pop culture experiences, and it's not necessarily the most relevant thing. And that's one of the challenges on like the political activist front, is it being rather reactionary, and kind of often aligned with a very mainstream, often Eurocentric Western liberal agenda. And so, again, the intended outcomes, right? The intended outcomes, again, are not the priority. So, fighting hard on a unilateral front, or on a multilateral front, and then like getting crumbs that ain't even gonna like do nothing. So that's frustrating, and that's not necessarily that's the symptom of the activist front that I've observed through the years, through the decades. But even just in the selection of the topics for the Grapevine, it was along those lines. And to be honest, it's difficult. Another thing that's frustrating is the very frequent susceptibility when talking about people of African ancestry on this continent. When talking about mélanger or multiculturalism and everything, it seems to be it's very difficult to find in recent history any of these like conversations without there being an infusion of LGBTQ in the conversation, and right there, that first of all, it discredits the conversation within the international community, because the international community is not the liberal, accepting da 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 that people seem to be fixated with often here on this continent. And when people hear that, they're like, "Oh nah, that's it, next channel." So there's that on the international front, but even further, it just it confuses, it blurs the concentration on the conversation of ethnic within ethnic communities, ethnic experience, and it basically it's like a not a honing tag, but it basically puts that tag on the cause, on the topic, on the conversation, like a tracking device kind of thing, of like, here it is. It's different than the mainstream. It's challenging the mainstream. Put the LGBTQ on it, and that'll keep it from doing anything serious, or being taken seriously, or being supported seriously. So yeah, that's another frustrating thing. So that being said, I'm gonna go on to the other topics, the other things that are recently being on YouTube. That delight. Well, I'm the only one talking at the moment, so others are invited. Others are invited. But meanwhile, and I'm sharing this actually as a way of just being increasing the breadth of the scope of the experience in this melange set, and I try to keep this under 5 minutes. So getting leaf dust, leaf remnants. Anyways, some YouTubers that I've viewed in the recent. I mentioned Grapevine. I mentioned I said I don't watch Breakfast Club too tough like that, but I just saw the one with Brother Dr. Umar, and so I watched that one. I did get into like a little bit of Vortex, and so I watched some ADD, some All Deaf Digital, I think it is, and I've seen it in the past years. A lot of it, some of it is funny through the years. A lot of it is a lot of BS. It's a lot of pot liquor culture, and I mean that as a socioeconomic derogatory. I just mean of like it's garbage. It's like I could say fast food culture, fast food comedy. It's like greasy oil, salt, and sugar. So for people like myself, ain't too much about that. But there are some parts that are funny, and there's a certain amount of intelligence and witticism within it. So I watched some of it, but then I saw I don't like the roasting joints. Some of it can be funny, but it's just a lot of insults, and I ain't about the insults. Particularly, just like it's not even like a redeeming insult. But on the roast, there was someone who was in a wheelchair, and they were making fun of the wheelchair. I'm like, nah. So I shut it off after that. I did see some. Well, I won't say that. I saw one YouTuber on there that was very interesting for her to be on there. And actually, I saw a number of the Timothy De La Ghetto. Now he has a very interesting balance of like the fast food culture, garbage. You can call it pot liquor, or whatever. And a lot of it is along that very sexist and sexually predatory, and additionally, but he also has certain like kind of like ordinary kind of plain spoken kind of nice guy type stuff or whatever else. Obviously, it's an interesting thing for a person who's into multiculturalism because he's Thai, but he's very much immersed in a black culture kind of setting, being on Wildin' Out and other things as well. So he's kind of got street cred along those lines, presumably from what I've observed. But he's also Thai, so I've seen him on Just Kidding and some other Asian predominated platforms, and additionally. So, and his wife is of African ancestry, or she actually seems to be of mixed ancestry, but I don't know if she identifies particularly in that manner. But anyway, so I watched a number of his videos, and there are some other comedians on a few of those. Trying to think of something to share that's of relevance at the moment. Much of what I watched was the vlogs, and so he's just like, one was a vlog of him and his wife giving an update about the marriage and life and living together additionally. So it was that again. The elements that I watched were not too like flashy. It's just a matter of like, here it is, vlog style. One was a vlog, but it had like some star celebrity comedians or whatever, so it was on the entertainment level, and some of it was funny actually. A couple of those. Anyways, that was that. We also watched. I will talk about JK. I haven't watched JK films in a long time. I used to watch the channel a number of years ago. Then this past year I started watching it again. Particularly the JK Party, because they socialize and they remind me of like the kind of social group that I have in my younger days. Kind of plain spoken, profanity talking, candids talking, putting the business out on Front Street kind of stuff. But But then, and plus they have a diverse crew. I mentioned predominantly Asian, but also they're people of African ancestry, they're people of European ancestry, they're Latinos, Latinas on there as well. So that's very multicultural and actually uniquely so. And that's one of the reasons why I watch it. But then they started playing a game called like Be the Next Hitler or something like that. And so where the game is to the object is to become the next Hitler. And I'm like, what? No, what are you talking about? And so like I sent a, oh look at me, I'm gonna write a letter. Oh, I'm very disappointed in you. Well, I did, and it didn't get no response. So guess what? Stop watching categorically. Oh look at me, I'm so tough. But yeah, because of that, it's like it's not even like there's no reason to be doing that. No legit reason to be doing that. And the cats were like oblivious to like they were like talking. I didn't watch any of the episodes that were labeled that, and the way they do it, you could see what the video's about before you watch it. So I didn't watch any of the things, but and I saw after I saw it for a while, I was like, wait a minute, what is that? And I heard them talking about like a recap of it and like laughing and like getting excited about um, like a previous game, and I was like, nah. So, anyways, that was a done deal. But it's sad because they're funny people, and they're a lot very raunchy and like profanity laden. But as you can see, I do my own profanity. But in terms of the raunchiness, like I have a different lifestyle. Um, so other than that, there is a certain canon speaking about race and race relations, and additionally, some of it I disagree with. They talk about rolling with guns and stuff like that. Disagree with that too. But again, there's a certain amount of respect that's shown and that's maintained amongst the different people from the different communities, and so that's one of the things I appreciate it. But sadly enough, at this point, there's a pause. There's a hiatus. So I just put that because that was a related subject. So I haven't watched any of that Too Tough recently. Haven't watched Long Fu Too Tough in a month because of very disagreeable content, but I ain't going to get into that at the moment. I will say that I watched some Fusitu, and I watched some of the. I'm uncertain what the group is called at this point, or the crew is called, but it's the Slimification and Adam Saleh, I think his name is, and they used to be with a brother named Kareem. Um, it's interesting to see that story unfold through the years because I actually watched the thing when it was Kareem who was like the big personality, and the crew was kind of like his I don't want to say entourage to like degrade them or anything, but it was kind of like along those lines because he had the channel and they were kind of on the channel. Well, I guess I will get into it. He had the channel. This is a number of years ago. He had a channel based out of the Haudenosaunee, New York City, and he had a channel, and he was a YouTuber, and he was a comedian, and an actor, and he was doing things, and he was getting a little popular, getting a little following. And then he had his crew that he would feature on there sometimes, and they started getting the personalities and starting to get attention, and they started doing their own channels, and so then the crew got bigger than he was, and then there was jealousies, and then, I don't know all the like the details and everything, but that's just what I've observed generally. There were jealousies, and so then Adam Saleh and Slimification, Slim, I'm uncertain what his family name is, do on their own channels respectively, and get big and start traveling around the earth and get like a international following. So anyways, that's on one side. Now on the other side, there's a brother named Fusi, or Youssef, but he goes by the name Fusi too. And he started his own channel on the land of Oleon in Tongva, in California. And he got big, but his shtick, his spiel is very different. Kareem, Adam, and Slim are very Arab and Muslim, and very much identify that. I'm seemingly observant. I'm uncertain to what degree, but that's like the culture, and so that's what's represented in the content that they share. Fusi, how you doing? I'm very well. How are you doing? What's that? I appreciate that. Yeah. What do you see when you see that? Okay. Okay.
I I've been drawing those for a lot. They're called mandalas.
Okay, yeah.
So you just work in the middle
Okay.
and you concentrate,
Aha.
and then you make a drawing. Then you add the color.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I was in Australia.
Really?
Yeah, and I attended a conference, and there were monks, Buddhist monks,
Yeah.
who were doing mandalas with the colored sand.
Right.
Have you seen that before?
No, but they do have it at the Cleveland Museum of Art every year. I don't
Wow.
know what day.
Nice.
That is just absolutely. If you gotta have neat penmanship.
Oh yeah, patience, patience.
Yeah, I'm an artist.
Okay.
That's hardly no money, but
Yeah.
I live as simple as possible,
Sure.
and I'm okay.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
I'm Scott.
Peter.
Nice to meet you,
Nice
Peter.
to meet you, Scott.
Take care.
You too. Love and peace. So Fusi too. He's also Muslim, Arab, and I think he's from. Actually, I was trying to think about this the other day. I know he went to Turkey with his parents, but I know he's not from Turkey. I want to say maybe Egypt. I don't want to say Lebanon, maybe Palestine, one of those. But anyways, his thing is very different. He's increasingly assimilated. He's kind of like a mainstream kind of YouTuber, and so he has a huge following. But a lot of it is kind of mainstream audience, and so he gets criticized by the Muslim brethren because of that, and because he's less observant, and he does things that are against Muslim teachings. So he gets criticized for that as well, seriously criticized. Anyways, and then there was a feud, I think, between his crew, or particularly him, and the other crew from the East Coast. And then I think it was squashed. But anyways, long story short, there was a benefit fight, meaning like a boxing match that was scheduled. There were a number of people on the card, and so there was a match between him, Yusef, and Slim, and I saw an update about that, and that's one of the videos that I watched. Now, I watched Slimification's review of the fight, and people could call me hypocritical for watching a pugilistic match, and call it violence, and that's very understandable. I don't advocate striking, and that's outside of my discipline. Of even in self-defense, I do jiu-jitsu brasileiro, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but in that it's an emphasis of grappling rather than striking. But that's probably the further side of the gray area that I get into in terms of sanctioning or entertaining or humoring violence, because it is violent. And Fusi showed photographs of, and actually he showed a video of himself after the fight, and he got a broken nose, and his eyes were done up and everything. So yeah, that's violence. But the thing about it is there's an absence of animosity between the two. There's an absence of hostility. It is a mutually consensual, benevolent. I shouldn't say benevolent because they're not necessarily always benevolent, but it's a mutually consensual in benevolent faith tournament or competition. So anyways, I'm going to leave that alone because I'm getting a warning on the storage thing. So I'm going to sum this up. So I watched that. I stopped watching the Yusef joint because he started like using a second person about the way his rhetoric was going. It was just very undisciplined, and so I couldn't even watch that. I had to stop watching that. So anyways, I'll pause it now. I maybe end on this one. Another YouTuber that I watched, I just found out about, and again, I have to be careful of how much I rely upon and lend myself to the algorithms, the YouTube algorithms. But Jenny Lorenzo, she's a sister from Cuba, who's a comedian, and she does skits about Cubana life. And not just Cubana, but just like additionally, but it's funny, and it's kind of like it's kind of like benevolent natured humor, and so it's refreshing to see that. And the comments on there are very positive. I don't know how much she sorts out the comments, but the comments are very positive and speak to that effect as well. So that's much of what I've seen in the past day or two. I don't think anything else that I've seen of note. Um, that's much of it. Oh, lots of football. Haha, footy. Oh, and actually, that might go into another topic. A scenario between Manchester United and Liverpool. Um, Business-wise, competition in terms of fandom or fan base, and merchandising additionally. Interesting, and it actually provides some serious consideration about methodologies that we're doing in our co-op situation. So anyways, that being said, I'm going to leave it at that. Oh, since we're doing the rights. Oh yeah, here we go. Bill of Rights for People of Mixed Heritage, provided by Dr. Maria P.P. Root. Am I being contradictory about referencing a doctor? First of all, I do have very fundamental disagreements with doctors. That's one thing. Second thing, I don't. Doctors provide a very needed service to humanity, so I don't categorically denounce doctors. What I was talking about before about the doctor with brother Dr. Umar is that when one talks about an Afrocentric approach towards things and being very militant to the point of excluding others as a policy, that's contradictory and hypocritical when relying upon Western methodologies, like Western medicine and the concepts and approaches of Western medicine. So that was the point I was making before. So anyways, that being said, Bill of Rights for People of Mixed Heritage by Dr. Maria P.P. Root. I have the right not to justify my existence in this world, not to keep the races separate within me, not to justify my ethnic legitimacy, not to be responsible for people's discomfort with my physical or ethnic ambiguity. I have the right to identify myself differently than strangers expect me to identify myself differently than how my parents identify me, to identify myself differently than my brothers and sisters, to identify myself differently in different situations. I have the right to create a vocabulary to communicate about being multiracial or multi-ethnic, to change my identity over my lifetime and further than once, to have loyalties and identification with further than one group of people, to freely choose whom I befriend and love. One love. I do it. Come on. I was being rushy. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Zaijen. Adios. Te chakalis. Esimpin na asamudo. Kile ufred. One love and peace.